right to the job. You're out there, they're viscerally having the strike being broken in front of you. So these workers are being asked to just basically sit down, shut up, and take it. So at this time, the McCormick workers, they're harassing. They're not saying kind things. This is not going down well. They're going off on these workers, and they view it as a complete betrayal, and they're angry. So outside this plant, August gets up, and August Spies says to the striking workers, it says, "Hold together. You need to stand by your union, or you will not succeed." And well planned and well coordinated, the general strike that's happening across the country is pretty nonviolent. I mean, you can't have that many hundreds of thousands into the millions of people walking around the street without a couple knuckleheads. But generally speaking, this is nonviolent. This is not people, hey, we're going to overthrow the existing order. This is, hey man, give us the 8-hour day. But at this point, stuff goes south, and it gets real ugly. The end of the workday bell sounds, and finally, enough is enough. And the group of workers, the McCormick workers, have had enough. They've been sitting there, they've been seething, they've been out here on this strike, and they surge forward towards the gate, towards the police officers and towards the workers, and it's showdown time. And the police the police open fire. The police are armed, the workers are not. The police open fire. And by the time this is all sorted out, anywhere from reports of 2 to 6 workers lay dead. Keep in mind, this was a decision by the McCormick Company of its time, the McCormick Harvesting Company. This was their decision to lock the workers out. Okay? This was their decision to lock them out. This was their decision to bring in strike breakers to break the strike. Now you can say, well, the workers were being unreasonable. By the way, you'll notice this in these podcasts, I always talk to the most doubting, on the verge of being completely anti-person I can, because at the end of the day, these are very reasonable questions. Were the workers out of line? No. They wanted an 8-hour workday. It's something that many of us, if you came and tried to take away the 8-hour workday, would probably say no to today. This was a quality of life issue. Completely a quality of life issue. So, now August Spies, who by the way was militant, he was marching around 10 years previously in military uniforms and saying tear down and end of the capitalist order and bosses be gone. He's not doing that here. This is a different August Spies. He's like, folks, calm your shit down. Calm down. Please calm down. And they don't calm down. Now, the deaths of these workers and the militancy that happened, it's traumatic. It's cold blood murder in many ways. It's a situation also, it's about crowd control. It's about a number of things. And this is a situation where really, should a reasonable person be rooting for the police or the strike breakers or the company? These were people who showed up to work. They're not getting, by the way, let go they're not being locked out because they're doing a bad job. They're being locked out because the company deemed, in their infinite wisdom, that the demands were too rich. And they made that demand. Now, it's not very clear what was the issues, but it likely is, again, about the 8-hour day. It's about pay. It's about all that stuff. So, at this point, over the next few hours, the labor community in Chicago and around the world, keep in mind this was a huge general strike, they're stunned. They're stunned. And all the sympathy at this point is with the workers. It's very clear the police opened fire. It's very clear that this was an unnecessary murder. It's very clear that this is screwed up and wrong. And so at this point, in response to the killing, flyers were posted, printed in German and English. The flyers claimed that the police had murdered the strikers on behalf of business interests and urged workers to seek justice. The first batch of flyers contained the words, "Working men, arm yourselves and appear in full force." August Spies, again, anarchist, wild guy, He says, "Oh my God, no, get that crap out of there. Pull that. No, I do not want that flyer going out there with telling working men to arm themselves. Are you crazy? All you're going to do is get people killed." So already we are seeing the signs of somebody who, whatever he was doing in the 1870s, this is somebody who is organizing, who's at least thoughtful and thought out about what he's trying to do. Whether, again, you agree with that or not, the historical record shows that this is a person who is not looking, at least from what we're seeing, unless this has been fabricated somewhere later, we're seeing somebody, by all accounts, not bloodthirsty. And this is a very important detail for what's about to come next. So, August Spies gets up. There's a big mass, about 1,500 to 2,000 person rally that happens in Haymarket. And the rally is generally pretty peaceful. August Spies gives a speech at the rally. He says, "Listen, there seems to prevail the opinion in some quarters that this meeting has been called for the purpose of inaugurating a riot. Hence, these warlike preparations on the part of so-called law and order." And keep in mind, the police officers were out in full force. And so when Spies talks about this, he's talking about the police officers gearing up. Now, anyone who had been to an Occupy rally or some of the major rallies in the last few years, you've seen police officers looking like damn stormtroopers. And it's hard not to look at them and laugh, but it's also hard to not see that they're trying to intimidate. The object of the meeting is to, however, let me tell you at the beginning of this meeting has not been called for any such purpose. The object of this meeting is to explain the general situation of the 8-hour movement and to throw light upon various incidents in connection with it. And basically it's a bunch of speakers. And, the speeches go on, and it's getting to 10:30 at night. And at this point, I've got to imagine the police are tired. They want to go home. They're tired of the speeches. They're tired of the rabble-rousing. They're tired of everything. They just want to go home for the night. So at 10:30, as the last speaker was finishing the speech, the police arrived in mass, marching in formation towards the speaker's wagon, and ordered the rally to disperse. And at this point, things are pretty peaceful. Okay, look, I think we're done for the evening. We're going to try to get this. Police Inspector John Bonefield proclaimed, "I command you in the name of law to desist and addressing the crowd for all you to disperse." It is at this point that things go off the rails. Now, for the last 3 or 4 hours, however long, this rally's been taking place, people have been hearing speeches, and it's been multiple speeches, it wasn't all just August Spies, about the police acting on behalf of business interests, murdering people. People are there because they're upset over the murders that had happened the night before. So when the police officers show up, when they show up, it is not beyond the pale or completely wild and nonsensical talk to think that somebody in that audience, somebody among those 1,500 people, want to kill that person, kill the cops, or do harm to the cops. It would reasonably stand to say that coming in and just saying, "Get out of here, folks," maybe not the best way to handle this situation. The police were probably, in all fairness, like I said, they were probably tired, and they were probably scared of a riot taking place. But whatever is going on, the tension could be cut with a knife. At this point, a homemade bomb is thrown into the crowd of the police, and the bomb goes off. And at this point, the bomb goes off, and what ends up taking place is that the police officers, hearing a cloud of smoke, they get their guns out and they just start firing. And by the way, you know what happens if anyone's ever played laser tag and you're out there and you're in the middle and you're seeing smoke or whatever, you don't know who's your friend, who's your ally. Police are hitting themselves as much as they're hitting the ralliers. They've lost all control. Within the next 15 to 20 minutes, they got their wish. The square was clear, except for the dead bodies. It was a carnage. It was a firing onto people who weren't able to defend themselves, but it was done, understandably so, when you had a bomb go off in your midst and you have no clue what is going on. And there are some folks who later on, I just want to set a couple baselines here, a couple baselines of fairness, because there's been back and forth and that sort of thing. And, you know, let's just start with a very fair, what I consider to be fair understanding of what's happening here. The police officers, I don't believe some folks who said, well, is there an agent provocateur? What's an agent provocateur? An agent provocateur is somebody armed by the government or by the police to break up a rally or to break up an event or to break up an organization. They are actually being paid to do so. And that's what an agent provocateur does. They're there working for the government to break it up, and they'll do weird things and do stuff. This doesn't seem like agent provocateurism to me. This very much feels like somebody in that group threw a bomb and wanted to do some damage and wanted to hurt the police. And there are suspects, there are actual suspects to this. So at this point, though, the bomb goes off. And when we look at the bomb going off, and we look at all the things that happen, this creates an outpouring in the days that follow. And the outpouring is tremendous outpouring. The outpouring that comes into play is one in which everybody is, the outpouring for the police officers is amazing. No one in the country had seen this sort of outpouring, I think, before. Maybe it had, I don't know the history of it, but it's really moving. You know, think of years ago, you can Google or YouTube it. Think of the 9/11 tributes. It's the concept is all these police officers were trying to do their job. They're trying to disperse a crowd, and these radical labor people, these anarchists and radical labor people, in cold, vicious blood, planned the attack and killed these people, and that was the basic charge. Now, keep in mind, media doesn't disperse the same way, but I would say that if such an event happened today, it would be pretty close to the same. It'd be pretty close to the same result. There's no checks and balances on this stuff. There's no, okay, let's wait, let's do a thorough investigation. So what ends up happening is anybody who's a labor organizer or unionist, raids get launched throughout the city. People are pulled from homes. People who might not even have been there at Haymarket Square, they're investigated. And the investigation itself was really an interesting thing, because the investigation sweeps the city, and at the end of the day, it's almost laughable, because let's look at it from what the police have to prove. Okay, what has to prove is that. What has to be proved is that they have to prove, the police have to prove that, number one, that they have a suspect, right? They have to have somebody who did it. It's a crowd of 1,500 people. How are you going to prove in a crowd of 1,500 people who threw this homemade bomb? Especially in the after effects of smoke and everything else. So the police assumed that an anarchist had thrown the bomb and as part of a planned conspiracy. Their problem was how to prove it. On the morning of May 5th, they raided the offices of the Arbiter Zeitung. Keep in mind that there was a heavy German influence in Chicago. I believe still so today. I don't know. But it was definitely a heavy German influence. So they raided the newspaper. They arrested Michael Schwab, Adolf Fischer, and August Spies, and August Spies' brother, who was not charged. A search in the premises resulted in the discovery of a revenge poster and other evidence considered incriminating by the prosecution. So, modern people would probably look at this as you look at it very much as circumstantial evidence. But August and a couple other folks were brought in. An associate of Spies, Balthar Rau, suspected as the bomber, was traced to Omaha and brought back to Chicago. After interrogation, Rau offered to cooperate with the police. He alleged that the defendants had experimented with dynamite bombs and accused them of publishing what he said was a code word, RU,